What's up YouTube? It's your boy Anime Princess, and today I'm giving you guys a fully revamped Archmage Spark build guide. The focus of this video will be to get your character geared and ready to pound T17 back to basics maps, as well as all of the Uber bossing content. This is basically an update that aims to round out our character. The original video from 9 days ago gave us a hit damage of 8.5 million, which worked out to be 45 million total damage when you factor in the 5 hits that are possible based on our skill effect duration. This current setup is going to give you a hit damage of 22 million for a total DPS of 110 million. A large part of this damage increase is due to gearing I purposely omitted in the previous video because I wasn't aiming to specifically do T17 juice content, and some of this extra damage is a bit situational. But now we're going to make use of this situational damage to propel us into the most aspirational and difficult content in the game. We are now making use of the Soul Eater buff via the Uber Elder Drop Soul Ascension. In normal mapping gameplay, you will not be able to ramp up and sustain the Soul Eater charges due to looting as you go, but for T17 maps, these gloves can essentially double our damage. In order to achieve this, we will want to be moving through the map with purpose, killing everything on the way to the boss room, but not waste our time looting. Even in a worst case scenario where you do end up dying in the boss fight and have to go in there with no Soul Eater stacks, you'll still be able to ramp up your stacks inside the boss arena, so these gloves are definitely a helpful addition when tackling multiple defensive map modifiers in back to basics T17 maps that compound together to give monsters insane defense. The other large damage increase is done through the skill gem Pinpoint support. Admittedly, I don't always recommend this as a support gem for Spark, but I am including it in this POB because I think it's useful in these aspirational situations where you do feel like you want that extra damage boost. In order to make use of Pinpoint support, you must first drop the caster mastery that opens chests automatically for +1 to maximum intensity. And I don't feel like this is a big deal for back to basics, nor is it a big deal for Uber bosses, because you're not really needing to open stuff in these situations. Pinpoint is a support that will ramp your damage up to an 80% more multiplier while you're stationary and casting. And this is done very quickly on this build because we have ludicrous amounts of cast speed. We're getting a bunch of cast speed on our skill tree. The Ravenous Passion helmet gives us a lot of cast speed via our Berserk. And the Soul Eater gives an insane amount of cast speed once you ramp up all the Soul Eater stacks. So the downside of Pinpoint is when you're moving around dodging stuff, which you will be doing, your intensity goes back down. But we have so much cast speed that as soon as you start casting, you're basically going to be full in this particular setup. So I think Pinpoint, pretty powerful, but again, it is optional. Now, the final thing here is we've upgraded the Quiver to the one I was suggesting to craft in the original Archmage video guide. I have a full video on my second YouTube channel if you want to watch the entire crafting process while you craft your own, and a link will be provided in this video's description. There are a few other changes to the passive tree done via tattoos, and we will get into that shortly. We will also look at the full level 100 passive tree, as I did hit level 100 using the Shrines XP strategy that was originally showcased by Ventrua, and then it was perfected by Havoc. So now you have the complete picture of the final passive tree. Let's hop into Path of Exile and take a look at my character. Alright, I want to go into detail all the little tweaks we made to make this a powerhouse for T17 back to basics as well as Uber bossing. As we mentioned in the intro, we are using Soul Ascension instead of Callista's Grace. Now, Callista's Grace gave us that 2% base crit, which helped us crit cap, and we are losing that. And honestly, you're probably not going to get this spell crit chance implicit on this either, so you're going to be losing a lot of crit chance. That means we're going to drop Sniper's Mark for Assassin's Mark. Assassin's Mark gives us a lot of base crit, gives us 1.5. It doesn't completely make up for this, but it makes up a good chunk. This is also the only skill gem that really has a dex requirement, so I don't know. If you guys are having plus 30 here like me, you can take that off. You don't really need to get dex anywhere else, just the Mage Blood. Other change is the replica columns has 50% reduced extra damage from critical strikes because there is a modifier that gives creatures tons of crit chance and a lot of crit multi, and this just lets you run that mod. You can roll over that mod if you want, but also if you can't get it on the columns body armor, you can get 30% as a mastery here, which is very nice. And you can combine that with all the int nodes being written over with 5% reduced extra damage from critical strikes to get as close as you can to 100%. And I don't think you should worry about int or strength. We are not int stacking, and I don't think we are ever going to do that. The reasoning for that is the mana stacker package is pretty skill point intensive, and we're also adding on crit. We have a crit package, and we also have spark package, which requires skill effect duration and some other stuff. So that's already 3 really big things that we are putting our points into. If you try and put int in here, you're gonna have to call out to corners. It's gonna feel really weird. I don't want to deal with that mess. So as you can see, we don't have too much int or strength right now. And that is fine. So yeah, Callista's Grace is off. We also took off Kalandra's Touch for Call of the Brotherhood. You don't really lose that much damage by not duplicating your ring. You do lose quality of life, you lose mana, you lose recoup, you lose just a bunch of nice stuff. But you gain a lot from Call of the Brotherhood because you get to freeze and chill everything like 2 screens away because we have so much projectile speed. And I'm not using Spark of the Nova, I'm using Directional Spark, which means in these maps, I'm shooting in a direction on purpose, and we are freezing shit before we see it. Our defenses are pretty good even if we get hit, but you know, you don't want to get hit if you don't have to. Call the Brotherhood, huge for T17s with back to basics. Now, as you can see, we have Lore Weave over here because there is a map mod which is minus maximum resistances, and Lore Weave has a line, your maximum resistances are equal to a number. They cannot be changed from that. So you can just throw that on for that map mod if you want to run it. Now you got a 6 link. My suggestion for stuff to put in here would be Tornado with Culling Strike support, and you can just put that on the button over here. It's going to be very nice for bossing. And you can maybe use Call to Arms with a Warcry as well. It's up to you what you do with the other 2 gem slots. You can leave them open if you want. You can see we have a Sibyl's Lament. This is so you can sub that in to do Ellie Reflect, T17 back to basics. And for the Pantheon, normal mapping, I like Lunaris, Tukahama, but when we have to do Ellie Reflect, this is only 80%. So to get to 100% Ellie Reflect, you put on Sola Yugal. Just remember to swap it back to Tukahama after the map, and also swap this back to Call of the Brotherhood. The ring, I did recraft this. It's a little bit better than my previous ring. It's still not perfect. As you can see, we've got 3 suffixes: lightning damage, fractured from the essence. We spammed crit multi. I think for the 3rd suffix, I would probably prefer cast speed, but mana regen is still pretty good. For the prefixes, ideally you'd have life, and you would Veil Orb the mana on there, and then you could craft on percentage damage from the bench, but the Veil Orb missed and gave me life, so I had to craft on the mana with recoup. That is fine. We can make this better later. And this is the Quiver I was talking about in the intro. We crafted +2 Pierce, and if you want instructions on this, there is instructions in the original build guide that came out 9 days ago. And if you want to literally watch me craft this while you craft it yourself to make sure you don't mess it up anyway, again, in the description, a link to the 25-minute VOD of that. That's pretty much it. You're going to have the updated passive tree in the video description. I'm pretty happy with this right now. Obviously, we still have room to make improvements, but this feels really, really good for T17 back to basics. Feels really good for Uber bossing. This should carry you pretty much as far as you want, and you can keep checking out the latest videos, because if I put out a new farming strat, put out whatever, there's still going to be in the video description my current character's path of building. As for the future plans for this character, you guys keep asking, can we do back to basics T17 barrels on Spark? So you guys are gonna get to watch that over the weekend, blowing up lots of barrels. For the next YouTube video, I think is probably gonna be how to roll your T17 maps safely from a mana stacker perspective. So whether you're playing Archmage Spark or you're playing Frostbolts or whatever, Ice Nova, should probably be of use if you're interested in getting into these aspirational type of mapping content. Plans past this, I'm not too sure. We're going to be playing BPL League. That's coming up in like a week or so, I think. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the revision 2 for the Spark Archmage. I'll see you in the next YouTube video if I don't catch you live on Twitch first. Alright, peace.
Seen anything like this? Defeat it for me.
This will never be over. I will unify humanity.